Well, welcome everyone for our post-podcast conversation from our podcast episode with Wikke Monster. It was also with her partner, Klaartje, from the Netherlands. So to start our conversation, first I'll have everyone introduce themselves. I'm the host of these podcast episodes, Carrie Raleigh, and why don't we have everyone introduce themselves? Wikke, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you for having me here. For me, it's tonight. It's 6 p.m. in Amsterdam. And that's the place where I have my office together with Klaartje, Freeke. And we are criminal defense lawyers, but we started our company to do it in a different way. And I'm not sure how long ago, Kim, when we met. I think already like six years, maybe even longer. And we do all sorts of projects openly and sometimes underground to get forgiveness and reconciliation in a court session or in a proceeding involved. We practice mindfulness in law, we teach, and we also have a normal practice with a lot of criminal cases. I was looking for the right English word, but I couldn't find it. So criminal cases, that's the main sort of cases we do. And one of the projects I think you are also interested in is that we started a project called Design for Justice, in which we investigate together with art students and law students how the courtroom of the future could look like and what would happen if you, instead of power or controlling or authority, if you start designing based upon hope or empathy or humanity. And I think I will tell something more about that later on. So thank you very much for having me again.
Thank you for being here.
We're so glad to see you.
And Judge Michael, we're so happy that you're able to join us as well. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
I can do that. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Dan Michael. I'm the juvenile court judge here in Shelby County. And in the United States, we don't label children as criminals. We label them as delinquent children. It's quasi-criminal in nature. And in Tennessee, I have jurisdiction over children who have committed delinquent acts up until their 19th birthday. Now, I would like to see that go a little further, maybe the 25th birthday, but that would take an act of Congress up in Nashville, and we've not been successful yet. Juvenile court in my area down in the southwest corner of Tennessee is what we call a special act court. It was created by an act of the legislature. It's not constitutional, like our circuits and appellate courts are. We have jurisdiction over all the children in Shelby County, about 1.3 million people here. We will clear about 40 to 50,000 cases a year of all the work we do. We see children who are abused and neglected. We deal with children who are born out of wedlock. We enforce, we set, modify, and enforce child support for the state of Tennessee. And we have, of course, delinquency dockets for children that are in trouble. My main role, I have 12 magistrates under me that help me hear all these cases. I choose those magistrates. They are picked by me and employed by me. I'm the only elected official at the juvenile court, elected by the population of Shelby County. And I sit on what we call our transfer docket. Wikke, you being a criminal lawyer, my job is to determine whether or not a child is tried as an adult or remains in juvenile court for rehabilitation. It's a very difficult docket. Children have made really bad mistakes. And of course, the legislature and the law doesn't give me crystal ball to see that child's future. I have to sit there and make that decision and be happy with it, or at least be reconciled with it. And it's very, very difficult. I have about 250 hearings a year involving very serious violent incidences of carjacking, kidnapping, murder. I've got 20 children right now in our detention center, children charged with first-degree murder, second-degree murder. And all those children have to come before me before I make a decision. I didn't go to law school till I was almost 40. I grew up in business. So I came at law from a different direction, to be honest with you. And I agree with what Wikke said earlier. One of the things that you come to realize when you work in the system is that we've been doing the same thing for many, many years, expecting different results. And that's the definition of insanity. We either haven't built enough prisons and locked up enough people, or we're not doing it right to begin with. And I don't think we're doing it right to begin with. I think there are other ways to approach both criminal justice and juvenile justice that would allow us to keep children and adults out of trouble and give them hope for the future so that society can succeed. They can pay their taxes and be good citizens. It's hard work. It's work that needs to be done. And I'm trying to do it here. So hopefully I'll have some success in the future.
Oh, very nice. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to hearing how both you and Wikke redesigned your courtrooms and with that. Before we get into that, Kim, Beth, and Peggy or Christina, do you guys want to briefly introduce yourself? Welcome to the group. Kim, do you want to say a few words about what we're doing here?
If Christina and Peggy want to introduce themselves, then I'll go last.
Hi, I'm Christina Loftus, joining you from Austin, Texas, and I'm currently not practicing law, but am a JD and super interested in all things integrative law and what this possibility has for not only the law profession, but society as a whole. So glad to be here.
Good to see your face, Christina.
Thank you.
I'm Peggy O'Neill. I'm in Allen, Texas, north of Dallas, about 30 minutes. And I practiced law for about 12 years. And when I was in law school, Hillary Rodham Clinton was one of my teachers. And I also worked with her in the free legal clinic, whatever that was called at the University of Arkansas. And I did a lot of juvenile court work under her tutelage and then alone. And then my first few years of practicing law. And but 12 years into practicing law, I changed careers and became a coach and consultant and trainer, facilitator, workshop facilitator. And now I'm really into, I guess what you could say, conscious leadership and helping people really understand who we truly are, our essential nature, the one being that we are. So that's my focus, and how to integrate that into business, into law, into people's personal lives. So I'm very excited to hear more about what we're talking about today. Thank you.
Beth, I didn't want to leave you out.
I was going to go next. I'm Beth Roach. I'm part of the Integrative Lawyers of the World team. I do have a JD. I don't practice anymore either, but I really am glad to help get this movement more eyes on it. It's been really exciting. I was learning about all these concepts in law school 15 years ago, and seeing it all starting and the research that was done on it. So to see it now in so many places, to see it around the world, as well as here in our country, being successful is really wonderful. So I'm excited to hear more about how you all are moving things forward.
So everybody knows me here except for Dan. And so Dan, I'm one of the people that's been herding the cats of the integrative law movement for a long time. I've spent a lot of time in Memphis. You may know my friend Linda Seeley.
Oh, sure.
And a whole bunch of others that are there. And so I'm always on the lookout for people who are doing things really more from the heart and in ways that make sense. It's like the integration of heart and mind. I've written some books that the ABA published, and as of today, we have just submitted the manuscript for trauma-informed law, which is how I found you, Dan, because we have a piece in our book about your court and how a trauma-informed court was, and that's how we came to reach out to you.
Thank you.
And I have spent many lovely days in Amsterdam, and working with Klaartje and Wikke has been like just such a joy, and to see what they do with their creativity and hearts and minds. When I talk about this movement, one of the things I say, there's even this group in Amsterdam that has been redesigning courts. And so I hope to make them famous, just as I hope to make you famous, because we need those kinds of role models who are, who are shining the light to another way is possible. And you're courageous enough to go for it, and to create what others didn't think were possible. So then it opens up possibilities for everybody else. So I'm really thrilled that you're here, and to learn from you and be inspired by you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
So maybe a starting point is we've been talking about redesigning the courtrooms as, different in our different introductions and comments. So Wikke and Dan, I'll let you guys decide who wants to go first, but maybe you can describe the redesigned courtroom that you guys have done. And Wikke, I think yours is in the process. It's not fully functional yet, right?
Right. Yeah. So I can show some pictures of the design.
Okay.
Although I'm not sure if I can share screen.
Yeah.
Then Beth should.
You should be able to share your screen.
Okay. And one practical point is that I will have to leave the meeting within 20 minutes. So I hope that is not a problem or an issue.
No, it's fine.
So Dan, for me, it's fine if you start, or I don't mind at all.
Well, since you may have to leave in 20 minutes, why don't you go on ahead and tell us about the work you're doing, and then I'll come after you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Well, in short, it started in the end of 2017, so almost 4 years already. Is it true? Yeah, I think almost 4. And I was cycling home after a court session, and I was defending a suspect, and I was thinking, like, how can we expect a suspect to take responsibility and to tell an honest story in a courtroom like this, with all these judges in front of you sitting on a higher platform, and the prosecutor and the clerk and all of them wearing black dresses, and they're all looking at you. And then in the back you have the victim with the victim's lawyer, maybe a press, maybe other people who are interested in the case. And I was thinking that over, and like, if I have an argue at home, I find it already difficult to say at first, like, maybe I was wrong, or like to be honest about my own vulnerability, and that is in the safety of my own home. So I was like thinking, like, how can we expect that from a suspect in this court session or courtroom? And couldn't it be smarter, better, more creative, and more serving to justice, because that is in the end of what we all want. And so that's how it started. And they were reconstructing the courthouse in Amsterdam, the district court, So we went to the the head of the reconstruction, and we asked him, could we design one courtroom, because we think we have good ideas to make a better courtroom. And from there, we asked the University of Amsterdam and the art school of Amsterdam. And well, before I knew it, it was no longer an idea, but it was a real fact that the students started designing the new courtroom. And at the end of 2018, we had a presentation, and from there, the Court of Amsterdam really embraced the designs, and we focused on finally on 2 courtrooms for juvenile cases, because that is the best space where you can pioneer, where you can, sort of like there's a lot of space also in the heads of the judges and the prosecutors, because they all are, although they are very enthusiastic, it's a very old-fashioned structure and system and people, so you really have to shake them. And in the juvenile cases, that is the best place to start. And
Can I just interrupt for a second, just to say, I mentioned creativity and courage before, but I can't imagine, even as crazy as I am, going to a courthouse and saying we want to redesign. That was like such a courageous and creative act, and that it actually happened gives me the possibility of anything can happen.
Thank you, Kim. Well, the thing is, after Amsterdam, so I will, when I'm finished, I will try to share the screen, because I'm not that smart with the technical stuff. But after Amsterdam, last year, we did the same course in The Hague. And now we are in 2 other cities, in Almelo and Arnhem, which is more in the eastern part of the Netherlands, because we want to make it as broad as possible and as local as possible, because you have, of course, in a local situations, a different needs. So actually it's a big success, and I can talk hours about it, and that's what I won't do, of course, but there's one thing what I really like about the project is that what I just said, like the old-fashioned heads and minds, and that when you start talking with a judge or a prosecutor about a table and the design or the lights or the colors of the walls, before they know it, they are talking about values behind that, like hope, like truth, like reconciliation, like anger, like hatred, like, and lawyers and emotions are not a very good marriage. So we are not, we are not trained in coping with emotions, let alone like giving them space in a courtroom. And the funny thing is that you talk about such a flat thing like a table or a chair or a lamp, and then they sort of like start melting, and before they even know it, they are with their heart in the courtroom and in the basic questions like how can we get into justice, what is needed to get a just outcome. So so that is very I really like that. It's like being sort of like a spy, like that they don't know it, and then you're in, and then they're also in. Yeah. So that's what I can tell about it. And Beth, what do I need to do again to share the screen? Are
There
you,
should be a button at the bottom of your Zoom window that it should share screen. It's like a square
Oh,
with
yeah.
a little up arrow. Click on that.
yes, I have it. And then, oh yeah. Okay. So what
There we
you
go.
see here is the design of the new courtroom, and we will have 2 courtrooms. So also because of Corona and well, some other issues, it has been delayed. But now recently I got the confirmation that well, in a short time we will go to the yeah, to the fabric, I think, so to the place where they will make the table, because the table is the most prominent design, a different design from like the normal court. Let's see how I can. So here you can see the table, and there will be 2 courtrooms, because if you are with, let's say, 3 up to 5 people, then a big sort of round table can be inconvenient because of the, yeah, the space. So we will make 1 courtroom for a maximum of participants of like 6, max 7, and then another courtroom with the same table, but then suitable for a maximum of 15 participants. And everyone, so the judge, the prosecutor, the suspect, the victim, everybody is taking place at the same table. Yeah, this is, I think this is a better view for you. And yeah, so this is how it's gonna look like. And I don't have a picture of the traditional courtroom, but just imagine a traditional courtroom, and that's how they look now. So it's a huge difference. And what I finally can say about it is that we also will start with the university to study the new courtroom, and also study the old courtroom, because of course we can think this is a good idea, but finally we will have to, you know, based upon results, if it's actually an improvement for the well, the participants. So that will we already started with some law schools, and we will continue that next year. And it's actually not only law schools, but also different studies to get also an integrated view of the effect of the new courtroom. Yeah.
How will you measure the effect or study the effect? And maybe this is something, Dan, you can address too, because your courtroom has been open, but what do you look for to measure the effect that the change in the design has?
Well, for me, I will not do it myself, because yeah, I'm just a
general you.
I'm just a lawyer. But what I understand, and of course I'm involved in it, is that they will start with taking interviews. So they will go visit court sessions. They will interview the judicials and the judge and the prosecutor, and from there they will investigate whether or not the responses are good or bad.
Yeah, we did an analysis of our courtrooms back, I guess it's been about 3 years ago now. And the group that came in, I'm not really sure where they were from. They were from out of town. They came in and they developed the survey questions for the litigants primarily. And they offered the litigants, when they came out of the courtroom, they offered them a gift card for, I believe it was Walmart, for like $50 if they would do the survey. The results of the survey mirrored what I hoped they would mirror, and that was that The litigants understood why they were there, what they were there for. They all told me that the magistrate judges were kind and compassionate during the proceedings. I'm kind of like you. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a surveyor. I have to rely on those teams to develop the appropriate questions and the methodology of gathering the information. And as we move forward, we'll probably do more surveys on our work once we get into our peacemaking courtroom. So.
Right. I guess the question
But
is,
then,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Wikke.
well, I just wanted to, it's so funny to hear you say that that the incentive was a gift card, because this is exactly where we are now. That how do you get them involved? Well, very easy, by giving them something in return, because we ask something from them. So, so that is where we are now.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess the question I was aimed for, not so much the methodology, but what are the things that you're looking for? Is that the participants in it have a more clear understanding of their role, that they're part of the process, as opposed to the process being onto them, but they're more accountability, that it's not happening to them. They're going through the process, understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's like the main thing. And what we know from our own practice is that if our clients felt that the judge really listened to what they said, like that they felt being heard, then there is a much bigger chance that they will accept the verdict, that they feel that justice has been done. So that is like the most important thing. And what we also know from our own practice is that it's such a huge difference if you are at a table on the same level having a conversation, or in the distance and the formality of a like a traditional courtroom. So we expect that to be a real difference. It will also be more, it will come closer. So maybe participants will not like it because they feel safe with the distance. Yeah. So, but in general, I think that it will provide everybody to say what is needed to say. I know it's a bit broad, or but it can be that it's not like a show, or that they, show, like a lot of times now in the courtrooms, every participants sort of like hides behind the protocol and like saying what the law asks them to say, but you don't see the human and you don't hear the real story.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The difference between what we still have standard courtrooms and what I call a peacemaking courtroom, like y'all designed over there, makes all the difference in the world on how the hearing proceeds and the outcome. And it's the outcome that's important. Like I was telling you a little bit earlier, if the litigants come out of the courtroom feeling like they were part of the process and help drive the process forward, I think you get a better result than if the lawyers and the judge are the ones driving the car, so to speak. You have to make the litigants comfortable. In my courtroom, I'm probably 6 feet up from the floor. It's a standard old courtroom. The changes we're making are few because we're going to redo our whole building over time. What's interesting is I'm not sure how many of you have been involved with Native Americans over here in the United States, but peacemaking is a form of justice that just about all the Indian nations in the United States use. My first introduction to peacemaking was at the Choctaw Nation, the Mississippi Choctaw Band of Native Americans. And they had just built a new courthouse, and they built a peacemaking courtroom.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like yours. In fact, their courtroom is round with a pit in the middle, with the chairs all around the circle. And everybody sits in that circle. You don't speak until it's your turn to speak, and they use what they call a talk stick. You have to pass the stick to the next person before they can speak. And if you choose peacemaking, you can't go back to court. You have to accept the result of the peacemaking decision. And we are moving toward peacemaking at our courthouse in Memphis. We're going to be rebuilding the building, the whole building. And I hope to build a round peacemaking courtroom there so that people have options. If they want to go into peacemaking, they can go to peacemaking. If they want a trial, they can have a trial. We haven't changed our courtrooms at this point. What we've done is we've changed the building. One of the things that frustrated me, the building I'm in, the western end of the building was built in 1936, and the eastern end of the building where the courtrooms are was built in 1996. It's essentially 4 buildings put together. In the middle of our building, we have a detention center. One of my goals was to get the children out of that old detention center into a new detention center that respects their future. And we have purchased the property. The building is up. The contract has been let to the contractor to get the building ready. And once we move our detained children out of the center of the building we're in, then we're going to have our building rebuilt. But I had to do something in the interim to make it a more pleasant experience when you come. We put a piano in what we call Scroggs Hall, which is our main hall, where we have 5 of our courtrooms. And it's automatic. You can turn it on and play music. And we pipe that through the system so that the folks can hear music while they're there. If you go on our 2nd and 3rd floors, the first thing you will notice is that every single office door is a different color. We came in with an artist from one of our universities, and we were looking for a kind of a cheap way to add color to the building because it's an old institutional building. So we walked around the 2nd and 3rd floor. We knocked on your door and we said, "What's your favorite color?" "It's blue." "Okay, here's a can of blue paint. Here's a paintbrush, paint your door." Well, since that time, the walls on the 2nd and 3rd floor are covered in art. 2 of the artists were 15-year-olds whose parents worked at the courthouse, and we just said, "Here's your canvas." We've got Dr. Zeus on the walls. We've got the tiger from Memphis State on the walls. We've got selfie pictures where you can stand in front of the picture and take a picture of yourself. One of the comments I got early on after we had finished all the work on the 2nd and 3rd floor was actually from a lawyer who said, "I felt like I was at a pediatrician's office. It was terrible." And I said, "Well, thank you. I take that as a compliment." We all know that one piece of music that grabs your attention or that piece of art that grabs your attention takes you out of the present, right? Nobody wants to be at the courthouse.
Exactly.
They have to come because we summons them. So they've got that knot in the pit of their stomach. They're not lawyers. They don't speak our language. I tell them that all the time. You're in a foreign country. We speak legalese here. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, please tell me because I'll back up and explain it to you. My job as the judge, and that's one of the benefits I have that you don't have, is I'm the sole judge of this juvenile court. I can do whatever I want to in that building, and nobody's going to stop me as long as I have the money to do it. The design we have put forward is a more open building with escalators as opposed to elevators, with art on the walls, different color, better surroundings instead of brick walls or just dull paint. You know, it looks like a courthouse. It's not inviting. It's intimidating, and we need to change that. And of course, these are juveniles and families that we're dealing with. We have done everything we can do to minimize the what I consider the effect on families who walk into our building. We make it more welcoming. We have ambassadors at the doors. You walk in, if you have a question, the ambassadors can give you an answer so that you'll know where to go and how to get there. We've got a nursing suite for nursing mothers. If they don't want to sit out in the main hallway and nurse in front of 200 people, they can go back to the nursing suite. We have a playroom for the children full of toys. And the walls are just gorgeous with art all over the walls that we had kids paint. And plus upstairs on the second and third floor where the artwork is done, we've got more comfortable seating so that people don't have to sit in hard pews or hard chairs. We make ingress and egress easier even under security, which we have to enforce. Our detention center children, with the help of 2 artists from Memphis, did a beautiful mural on the wall in their lunchroom where they eat every day. It attracted a lot of attention from the local media. We have Sister Peace. She is a nun who is a protege of Thich Nhat Hanh, who was the spiritual advisor for Martin Luther King. And she's from the monastery down in Magnolia, Mississippi. Yeah. And her and a group of 3 artists have been coming to our court now for the last 4 years. They work with the children in detention. The 2 artists, she is a photographer, her husband and his partner are videographers. They're teaching children how to use cameras. They're just doing incredible work. Sister Peace does what she calls walking meditation with the children, which is something that has lowered the violence in the detention center, which is remarkable. When you have 17 inner city children who are in detention for really, really tough charges, writing poetry, and then standing up in front of their 16 cohorts in that room and reading the poetry back to them, you have made a huge step forward, because these kids don't show emotion. They're tough. And when you can talk them into doing something like that, you've made an advance in helping those children heal in the future. And of course, what I want to see with our trauma work at our court, I want to see families coming out of that building better served, getting the services they need so that they can move on with their life and not have to come back to my building. And we did that. We had the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges come in about 6 or 7 years ago and do a trauma audit. And they look at everything. And from that trauma audit, they made recommendations, and we have fulfilled all those recommendations. I'd like to say we're not trauma informed anymore. We're trauma responsive. I have a PhD on staff who runs my trauma clinic, who trains all my employees on how to approach families, motivational interviewing, which is critical in these cases. We provide services when a family comes in. If they volunteer, we produce both ACE tests, both Pennsylvania ACEs test and the standard ACEs test. And we also use CANs on the children, which gives us a better handle on what their needs are. Now, the judge doesn't see any of this. This is all done upstairs through our probation and our evaluation referral service. So families come in, we kind of wrap our arms around them. We try to evaluate them to determine what services they need. We then refer them to services and send them back out to the community. And of course, my goal is to rebuild the building, make it more family friendly, and incorporate a lot of those programs that are out in the community into the courthouse. In other words, give them offices at the courthouse so the handoff is quicker. Instead of saying, okay, you've got an appointment at this therapist office in 6 weeks, we're going to walk you down the hall and hand you over to the therapist right there.
Yeah.
It's kind of a blend of what they're doing in Dade County, Florida with their assessment center and what I want to do at our courthouse, because it'll be big enough to do that. Change is slow, change is tough. What you were saying earlier, Kim, about the willingness to get things done. The nice thing about my job is that I'm the only juvenile court judge in Shelby County. And if I want to change something, I change it. I don't have any other judges in my building who will disagree with me, because all the judges in my building work for me. So it works very, very, very well. And we're working hard to get things changed here.
Dan, I'm really, well, impressed about what you tell us. And I made some notes. Tomorrow I will have a call with the director of a symphonic orchestra, because I want to start a new project with music in the courthouse. Yep. So I'm just thrilled about everything you said. Unfortunately, I really have to go now. Dan, let's stay in touch.
Let's do stay in touch.
I think, yeah, we have a lot in common, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's great to meet you. We will stay in touch, I promise.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
We actually plan these for half an hour to 45 minutes, but we're always so inspired that we run over a little bit. So you probably won't miss much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kim, and all the other ones. Carrie, Beth, Peggy, Michelle. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, Dan, I'm
we all jump in to talk.
I'm so touched. Yeah. I mean, you're we hadn't met, but I was inspired by just the article written about you, and now I'm even more inspired, and can't wait to come to Memphis again, which people keep inviting me. So I may show up with a camera in your space.
Yeah, come and I'm sorry I didn't upload photographs. I didn't even think about that, frankly, but you're welcome to come. Now, we're still under COVID restrictions here. We're still virtual. We're not having in-person hearings. The vaccination rate in our county is very low, about 32%. And if we had in-person hearings, we'd have 300 people in Scroggs Hall spreading the virus. So we're still virtual. And one of the outcomes of virtual hearings is achieving some of the goals that I had set. One of the biggest things that a Zoom hearing does for the litigants is that we are taking them from where they are. They're not having to get in the car, ride a bus to the courthouse. They're not having to get dressed up and come into, square peg in a round hole. We're talking to parents and grandparents, aunts, uncles in their living room or in their kitchen or at their job. We're meeting them where they are. And what we have seen, especially in our delinquency hearings, is a rise in the number of victims who are willing to come forward and testify over Zoom. It was about a 60% increase. That's enormous, of victims who are willing to come to court and testify over Zoom, because they don't have to face with the defendant. They don't have to stand in the hallway with the defendant's family. So Zoom has achieved some of those things that we're looking for, and we'll probably continue to use it once we can get face-to-face hearings back in place on briefer issues.
I have another story in South Africa that they've done a courtroom design, and I haven't met those people, but I do a lot of work in South Africa. And what they've done in the more violent cases is they have a 2-story courtroom.
Hmm.
So the victim and the accused person are on different
Oh, wow.
floors inside, like sort of like a balcony.
Uh-huh.
And so that they can take testimony from the balcony, and the person is still in the room, so they're fulfilling
Sure.
all of those legal requirements without having to come face to face and without feeling that proximity. I thought that was a really brilliant
That is a neat way of
approach.
approaching it. Yeah. A lot of the victims are just frankly scared. They've been victimized once. And then they're pulled into a courtroom where they're literally 10 feet from the defendant who victimized them the first time, and they feel victimized again. And we try really, really, really hard to make everyone in the courtroom feel comfortable. And it's a difficult thing to do. You've got bailiffs standing there with guns on their hips and security, and it's a traditional courtroom where I'm sitting up 6 feet above the litigants. And so it's difficult to do. And I'm not the least bit interested in going back into our courtrooms now because they've got plexiglass screens around everything. And which is even more cloying for me as a judge. And it makes it difficult to hear the litigants. So hopefully we can beat back this virus so we can get back in a regular setting. But yeah, we've got a very small courtroom in the back of the courthouse that we're going to remodel as a peacemaking courtroom until we can get the building rebuilt. And we'll start peacemaking back there. So it's a restorative process. Like our guest said, the victim and the perpetrator are sitting at the table together with the judge, with the prosecutor, with the defense attorney. And you just have a conversation. You kind of throw out the rules of evidence and you sit down and have a conversation. And
I used to be a restorative justice trainer.
Yeah.
And I'm a circle keeper.
Yeah.
It has the potential for transformation, and it requires some prep.
It does a lot of prep and a lot of training, but it works, and we know it works.
It was. I love.
I'm sorry, Beth.
Oh no, that's okay. I was just thinking. I loved when you said one of the attorneys said it felt like being at the pediatrician's office, because in my mind I was like, that's fantastic.
That's
because
right.
The whole point of a pediatrician's office is it's not a doctor for grown-ups. You want the kids to be comfortable in a space to get whatever healing and support they need. And the whole point of integrative law is to do the same thing from a social and legal standpoint. So yes, it should feel like a pediatrician's office because you're in a pediatrician's courtroom, basically,
We have television in our big waiting room. And when I took over, they were on CNN or MSNBC or something like that. And I told my CAO, I said, put all those TVs on Cartoon Channel because it's full of kids sitting in the waiting rooms with their parents. So now all the televisions are on the Cartoon Channel. If you don't like it, that's too bad. But the kids love it, especially the younger ones. And some of the older ones too. They won't tell you that, but they do.
I think it's time to wrap up, but I
was just going to wrap up with one question in case anyone's listening to this and they want to try to implement different changes in the physical spaces of their courtroom. How would you suggest they go about it? And this is open to anyone.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. You pull the bench out that's designed to put the judge in. You pull the benches out from the clerks. You just flatten the space. In other words, go in, tear everything out. If you can't build a round courtroom, build a round table that fits in that courtroom and put the chairs around the table, and then have chairs around the perimeter for any other witnesses or observers. And we don't have a lot of observers in juvenile court because of the restrictions on protecting their, protecting the juveniles from the glare of the camera, so to speak. But I think it's really straightforward. The other thing I suggest you do, if you've got a bunch of old white judges hanging in your courtroom, take their pictures down, move them to the back hall, and paint the walls a nice color. Maybe the wall on one end is blue and the other side it's orange. I don't know, whatever you want to paint it, but add color to the courtroom. Color helps, you know, pink is real calming. I've never seen pink walls in a courtroom, but I might try that because it has a calming effect on people. And then hang art in there, make one wall a chalkboard and give the kids chalk. So there are a lot of different things you could do to transform a current courtroom that's more restorative than a regular courtroom.
Okay. And with Wikke, she started the process by approaching the judges in the courtroom where she was. You happen to be the judge of your courtroom, so you can start it yourself. But I noticed both of you had a collaboration too between judges and lawyers. And then I think you brought in some people from the local university. She did. So it's having a collaboration of people.
Right. Yes. Okay. It's very important that you bring the lawyers and some of the public into the meeting, because if you don't have buy-in, somebody's going to push it out. You've got to have buy-in for what you're doing. I didn't get a lot of resistance from people on painting the walls and the doors and making those changes. I got very little resistance. Everybody likes art. Everybody gets a thrill out of a pretty picture or a nice piece of music. So I didn't get a lot of pushback. And I don't think I'm going to get much pushback when I redesign the whole building. So I'm looking forward to that process.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.